morning of June 8, 1989, began like any other in Richmond, British Columbia. But before the day was over, investigators would be standing over one of the most puzzling death scenes in Canadian history. The woman at the center of the mystery was 44-year-old Cindy James. For nearly 7 years, she had reported being stalked, harassed, assaulted, and terrorized by an unknown individual. Her claims had generated hundreds of police reports, countless theories, and growing skepticism. When her body was finally discovered, authorities faced a question they had never been able to answer. Was Cindy James the victim of a relentless predator, or had she somehow orchestrated the terrifying events herself? More than 3 decades later, the mystery remains unsolved. This is the story of Cindy James. Born in 1944, Cindy James worked as a nurse and lived in the quiet suburbs of Richmond, British Columbia, near Vancouver. Friends described her as intelligent, compassionate, and dedicated to helping others. She was known for her work in child health and nursing and appeared to lead a relatively normal life. In the late 1960s, she married psychiatrist Roy Makepeace. For years, the couple lived together and built a life that seemed stable from the outside. But eventually, the marriage deteriorated. By 1982, Cindy and Roy had separated. It was shortly after the separation that the strange incidents began. At first, the harassment appeared relatively minor. Cindy reported receiving threatening phone calls. The caller often remained silent or whispered threats before hanging up. Then came the letters. Some contained disturbing messages. Others appeared designed simply to frighten her. As the months passed, the incidents became more alarming. Cindy told police someone was watching her home. She claimed objects had been moved, windows tampered with, and signs of intrusion left behind. Neighbors occasionally reported unusual activity, but investigators struggled to identify a suspect. The harassment continued. Then the situation escalated dramatically. In October 1982, Cindy reported being attacked outside her home. She claimed an unknown assailant had approached her from behind and threatened her. Not long afterward, she was found suffering from injuries that she said were inflicted by her stalker. Police opened investigations, but evidence remained limited. The attacks appeared real. The injuries were documented. Yet, no suspect could be identified. Over the next several years, incidents multiplied. Cindy reported dozens of threatening phone calls. She claimed she was being followed. She said someone repeatedly broke into her home. At times, she was discovered in a state of distress, claiming she had narrowly escaped another attack. On several occasions, friends and family members became deeply concerned for her safety. The fear appeared genuine. But as investigators examined each event, inconsistencies began to emerge. Physical evidence rarely pointed toward an outside attacker. Many incidents occurred when no witnesses were present. Despite extensive surveillance efforts, police never caught anyone targeting Cindy. The case became increasingly frustrating. Authorities installed alarm systems, officers conducted stakeouts, investigators monitored phone activity. Yet the harassment continued without a clear source. By the mid-1980s, opinions surrounding the case had become sharply divided. Some believed Cindy was the victim of an exceptionally careful stalker. Others began to suspect something far more complicated. One possibility was that Cindy might somehow be involved in creating the incidents herself. The theory was controversial. Many people who knew her strongly rejected it. They argued that no one would willingly endure years of fear, humiliation, and injury. But investigators could not ignore the lack of evidence pointing to another individual. In one particularly troubling incident, Cindy was found unconscious near her home. Her hands and feet had been bound. A nylon stocking was wrapped around her neck. She survived and told police she had been attacked. Yet once again, investigators found no definitive evidence identifying a perpetrator. Psychologists and consultants were brought in to evaluate the situation. Some suggested Cindy could be suffering from severe psychological distress. Others believed the possibility of an unknown stalker could not be dismissed. The case drifted into a gray area between criminal investigation and psychological mystery. Years passed. The harassment never fully stopped. Then, in May 1989, Cindy disappeared. Friends became concerned when she failed to maintain her normal routine. Days passed without contact. A search began. On June 8, 1989, her body was discovered in an abandoned area near Richmond. The scene immediately raised disturbing questions. Cindy was found deceased with signs that suggested a complex and unusual set of circumstances. Investigators determined that drugs were present in her system. Some of the circumstances surrounding her death appeared difficult to explain. How she arrived at the location remained uncertain. Whether another person was involved was equally unclear. Police launched a major investigation. Every aspect of Cindy's life was reviewed. Her years of reported harassment were re-examined. Friends, family members, former associates, and investigators were interviewed. The central question remained the same. Had someone finally killed Cindy after years of stalking? Or was her death connected to the same unexplained pattern that had surrounded her for nearly 7 years? The coroner's inquiry would ultimately reach a conclusion that satisfied almost no one. Rather than ruling the death a homicide, suicide, or accident, the official verdict was classified as undetermined. In other words, investigators could not establish exactly what had happened. The evidence simply did not support a definitive answer. The years that followed only deepened the mystery. Supporters of the stalking theory pointed to the sheer length and intensity of the harassment. They argued that Cindy had repeatedly sought help and showed genuine fear. Some believed an unidentified offender had managed to evade detection for years. Others pointed to the lack of concrete evidence. They noted that despite extensive investigations, no suspect was ever identified and no clear proof of a long-term stalker emerged. Books, documentaries, and crime researchers have revisited the case countless times. Each new examination reaches the same obstacle. The evidence appears to support multiple interpretations while conclusively proving none of them. Today, the death of Cindy James remains one of Canada's most debated true crime mysteries. It sits at the intersection of criminal investigation, psychology, and human uncertainty. For nearly 7 years, Cindy lived under a cloud of fear. Whether that fear came from a real attacker, an unseen threat, or circumstances no one fully understood, remains unknown. What is certain is that a woman lost her life, and the questions surrounding her final years were never answered. More than 30 years later, the case continues to challenge investigators, researchers, and anyone who attempts to understand it. In a world where most mysteries eventually reveal their secrets, the story of Cindy James remains suspended between competing possibilities. A case with no clear ending, no confirmed perpetrator, and no final explanation. Only questions that continue to linger long after the investigation ended.